Hi there. So in this lesson I'm going to look at tonguing and some useful ways to approach this for students of any age really. It doesn't really matter whether you're a beginner or whether you're intermediate or advanced. I think understanding different ways of approaching tonguing and the issues that there are when playing the clarinet and how to approach pieces is going to be really useful. So the first thing to remember with tonguing is that the air is the most important thing, and if we can hear how the notes are connecting away from the instrument and find techniques of hearing the different sounds that we're expecting to make when we use the tongue to articulate the notes, then we've got a better chance of it being successful when we actually play the instrument. Remember, the clarinet, like any woodwind instrument, is very, very complicated, and what we're doing both with the embouchure, the mouth position, and the tongue, the articulation, these are all things that we can't see. So if you're playing a stringed instrument, for example, you can see your hand for the most part, unless you're playing a double bass or a cello where it might be by your head. But on the clarinet, everything it's hidden. So the air that we use is invisible, and the muscles that we use to support the sound from our diaphragm, they are things that we can't see. We can't see our hands, for example. So looking at tonguing, the way that I teach this is using vocalization techniques to help us to work through a piece of music to hear the different sounds. So the first things first is if you just sing a single note. So if we're going ta, so there you can hear, even with my not trained singing voice, that we're keeping the air continuous. So if I was doing a 4-beat count, ta, that would be 4 beats, and the air is continuous. Now, I started that note by saying ta, ta, and whenever we're doing any other kind of articulation, adding the tongue in, what we're doing is we're repeating the word ta. So if I was doing our 2-beat count, ta, 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 ta. If I do a tongue, an articulation on every beat, ta, 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 ta. Now, what I'm not doing is I'm not stopping the air, and that's crucial. What we're doing with the tongue is that we're articulating, we're touching the reed with our tongue to start a new sound, but we're not stopping the air. That's really, really important, and lots of young players in particular, but also people that have been playing the clarinet for a very long time, if they're not taught articulation correctly from the beginning, it can be a real problem to undo it later on. So by hearing the sounds that you're trying to do away from the instrument, it doesn't matter whether you can sing or not, whether you like the sound of your voice, the thing to do is to hear those sounds and understand that the air is continuous. You take a breath, and as soon as you're releasing the air, then the air doesn't stop, ideally. So as I said there, we've got a tongue on every beat, ta, 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 not ta, 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 where I'm stopping the air. Because as soon as you've started the air is starting from down here in your core muscles, your tummy muscles, and we're using those muscles, the abdominal muscles, to push the air out of your body. Ta. So they're a nice long continuous note. Now, if I want to articulate and tongue, like I did before, ta, 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 or ta, ta, which is minims or crotchets next to each other. So I'm keeping the air moving and using my tongue. So whenever I'm teaching, I use vocalization a lot. So ta is an easy one. that's when you're tonguing, and that's going to help you with any articulation that you might have. If you've got a slur, then of course you're not using your tongue and you're moving smoothly from one note to the next. So that would be a ya. So if I've got ta 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 ya ta ta, ta 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 ya ta ta, ta ya 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 ta ta. So you can see, if you can produce those sounds, and you don't even have to change the pitch. If you go ta 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 ta, or ta ya 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 ta ta, that is just as good. Ta ya ya ya. So I use tas and yas as vocalizing. Now, some of the other things that we have to do with articulation, and this is one of the things that I think a lot of people get wrong right from the beginning when they're being taught it, is staccato. So I'm going to talk about it now, and it may be something that I'll refer to in another episode of this, because it can be something that I think is good to look at individual pieces and look at ways of using vocalization to help. So just briefly, staccato it literally means detached. That's the crucial thing to remember first of all. It doesn't mean short, it doesn't mean bouncy necessarily, it means detached. You can have a staccato dot on a note of any note value. You could have a semibreve, a whole note, or a half note, a minim, and you could have a dot, and it just means that you're separating it from the next note. And the way that we achieve that on the clarinet, in my opinion, to make it the best technique, is not by stopping the air, it's by using the tongue. We put the tongue back on the reed. So if you can imagine, if I go ta, 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 I'm not stopping blowing, the air is behind my tongue. So you can see the ta da 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 ta 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 ta. So that's the way that I approach staccato. Again, you can see I changed the consonant there to a da, because a da might work better when you're going da 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 da, not da 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 like that, which is like an aspirated, sort of breathless sound that comes from your diaphragm, from your core muscles there in your abdomen. So sometimes we want that kind of quality. It might be like sort of laughing, ha 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 ha. But as a rule, that's not how I think staccato should be. That ha 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 ha. It's a special type of staccato that you might use when you don't want such a crisp sound. So those notes again, staccato using the tongue. Da, 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 da. So it's very difficult to make those sounds if you're doing it from down here, if you're changing the air. It's all in the tongue, hence the name. It's articulation. It's to do with how we use the tongue. So I hope that's been useful. Just a little bit of background on how to approach tonguing, normal tonguing, tars and dars, and slurring, yas, and then doing staccato, da, 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 by using vocalization. I'll do another lesson, and I'll maybe choose a piece of music and show you how to utilize vocalization and then realize that in the sound that you make when you're playing the instrument. Thanks for watching.